Hi, I'm Mike Vernick. Welcome to this video that will discuss the Research Security Program requirements of the NSPM-33 implementation guidance. NSPM-33 itself included a requirement that institutions receiving in excess of $50 million in each of the 2 prior fiscal years implement a research security program that includes 4 discrete areas. Those areas are cybersecurity, foreign travel security, export control training, and research security training. The guidance explains that the government itself will provide technical assistance in terms of development guidelines, best practices, and the like that research institutions will be able to utilize to develop and implement their own research security programs. I'd also note that, as was the case with the NSPM-33 guidance addressing disclosure requirements, the intent is that research security program requirements will be standardized across the entire federal government. The guidance makes reference to organizations being able to tailor their programs and also to be able to place those programs in areas where they can leverage existing policies, procedures, or other initiatives. One of the questions that I think research institutions are going to have to consider when it comes to their research security program is where best to house it. For example, should it roll up under the Vice President of Research as part of research administration? Is it more of an information security issue? Is it a cybersecurity issue? The guidance does explain that this should be an iterative process where the government will engage with the research community and other stakeholders to work towards developing a series of requirements that the research community finds reasonable and can implement without undue burden. Of course, that's going to require active participation by the research community and a willingness on the government to work with the research community and to hear the research community's concerns. A few points on particular elements of research security programs. The first is the travel security requirements. This may be an area that is particularly challenging for many research institutions, which tend to be rather decentralized and not to impose a lot of command and control over their faculty and staff when it comes to travel, particularly international travel. Under the NSPM-33 guidance, an organization is going to have policies that will, among other requirements, create an organizational record of covered international travel by faculty and staff, and also develop a disclosure and authorization requirement in advance of international travel, security briefings, and assistance with electronic device security. The second area that I'd like to touch on are the research security program requirements focused on research security training. This may be another area that research institutions find burdensome. Among the requirements is an obligation to train relevant personnel on research security threat awareness that would include, where appropriate, insider threat training. In addition to the periodic training, research organizations would be required to conduct tailored training in the event of a research security incident. Again, this is potentially a burdensome new requirement for the research community because it would impose upon it an entirely new suite of mandatory training obligations. The next area of the research security program requirements that I'd like to touch on are the cybersecurity elements. Essentially, what the research security program would do is import into the research space the Federal Acquisition Regulation basic cybersecurity safeguards found at Federal Acquisition Regulation 52-204-21. These are indeed relatively basic safeguards. For example, they include actions such as limiting system access to authorized users, monitoring communications, and protecting against malicious software and other risks to the information security system. The next area that I'd like to touch on is the Research Security Program certification requirement. Research organizations will have to certify compliance with Research Security Program requirements. This certification raises potential False Claims Act risk, particularly because the Department of Justice has recently launched an initiative under which it intends to use the False Claims Act as a means to enhance cybersecurity across the entire federal government. Next, I'd note that organizations will be required to maintain a description of their research security plan and to provide that description to federal agencies upon request. That, of course, will provide a mechanism through which the agency can assess compliance. And the final point that I'd make with respect to research security plans is that the plans themselves may become part of the research institution's annual single audit. That brings to a close this video addressing the NSPM-33 Research Security Program requirements. Thank you.